Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd. And you know, we've talked about it for a long time. I think anybody that's been paying attention for any length of time to anything having to do with pop culture or Hollywood in general out there knows that, well, there's a lot of crazy people out there. Actors and actresses have meltdowns all of the time. We see what happens. I mean, you can go back to the days of Britney Spears and all of that kind of nonsense. And of course, there's plenty of reasons behind all of that. And those aren't things we're going to get into here today. But you know what? It's nice, boys and girls. It's nice when we've obviously observed from such a far away that there's a certain person out there, there's a certain actor who played a character that we loved for so long, that we grew up with generation after generation, and generationally passing this stuff down to our children. And it's one of those things, it's always so sad to see these people completely lose their minds, right? They live in these little bubbles out there where they're surrounded by Hollywood yes men that tell them they're the bestest thing ever, and they're so smart, and they're so fabulous, and they're wonderful, and everybody talks the exact same. You know, it goes back to the Nickelback quote of the whole, you know, to the latest dictionary and the list of today's who's who. You know, that's what these people get inundated with all of the time, and it's all marketing and advertising and yada, yada, yada. So we know that these people live in a bubble, right? They're not part of the real world. They're not part of us flyover states out there. No, boys and girls. So they all get fed the exact same kind of deluge of information over and over again. And to see them actually admit that it has driven them crazy during an election cycle is absolutely hilarious. And it could not have come to a better person, because I think we've all known that Star Wars' Luke Skywalker actor Mark Hamill is completely and totally insane. And boys and girls, he's now finally admitting to it. And man, I think that's a beautiful thing. And at the end of the day, as we all know, the first step in finding help is admitting that you do have a problem. So shout out to you, Mark Hamill, for taking your first step towards sobriety, sanity, I don't know, but good job, buddy. Because as you can see over here in our wonderful article from fandompulse.substack.com, Mark Hamill admits being terminally online and during the election made him crazy, and ignored his daughter's advice to stop spamming political tweets. I mean, come on there, boys and girls. Holy cow. By the way, Mark Hamill, what did your granddaughter have to say about that? I'm just kind of curious. I'm sure you'll get back to us on that very soon. But to have a family member look at your social media account and go, Dad, you need to calm down. You're good. If nothing else, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. Not to mention trying to alienate all of the rest of these. Literally over now, we have found out after the election, over half the country. Because like Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy shoes too. You are entertainment. You are supposed to be in media. You are our adult pretenders. You are our dancing puppets. You are our dancing monkeys in a stage out there. You are dancing clowns. You are our modern day court jesters. And that's what you're supposed to be there for. You're supposed to be there to entertain us. We do not come to you for sage advice, but by all means, it's a free country. You want to espouse your views, you want to go out there and completely and totally lose your mind over there on social media, by all means have it. It is your God-given right to express your views. But guess what? It's our God-given right to express our views back at you as well. And the fact that you couldn't handle that, and the fact that one of your family members tried to take this, tried to intervene, tried to pull an intervention, which is clearly what you need. Well, Mark Hamill, it's just nice to hear that after the election's over, and now that you've realized that the spirit of the age has failed with the majority of the population of the United States, well, we're glad to hear you're making your first step in the road to recovery by admitting that, yes, you are crazy. So we're going to check out this article from fandompulse.substack.com. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share it with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, let us know what you think about this on the comment section down below. Is it nice to hear the fact that one of these Hollywood actors is actually out there admitting that they have been completely and totally taken over by the spirit of the age, that TDS broke their brain, and that there are crazy out there? You're just like, it's just another day at Indian. Why? And when you get into the details, he's just trying to justify his craziness and just yada, 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 more of the same kind of nonsense talking points. Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. So from fandompulse.substack.com, Mark Hamill went so hard for Kamala Harris during the election that many thought he was paid shill for the campaign. But a new interview shows that Star Wars actor may have simply lost his mind, as he says he was devastated by the election results. So it turns out Mark Hamill might not have been even saying this to get a paycheck. No, boys and girls, he might be an actual true believer in the cult. Mark Hamill became the poster child for the first Joe Biden campaign, as he infamously went to the White House to announce he considered Biden to be Joe By-Wan Kenobi. And one of the saddest moments in political history since Hillary Clinton announced Pokemon Go to the polls in her campaign in 2016. Boy, wasn't that clever. Boy, it's almost like these politicians don't understand anything about pop culture or fandom, huh? I know, strange concept. After it became clear that Biden did not have the mental acumen to serve another term as president, Mark Hamill immediately shifted to being a Kamala Harris full-time supporter on his X account. He literally even had, like, his background was a Kamala, like, advertisement for, like, a political thing was his background on Twitter. Yeah, he went that far. Mark Hamill was immediately, his posting was so over the top that many speculated the Harris campaign paid him for his advertisements. After the election, however, Hamill followed the trend of many Hollywood celebrities blaming X for the election of Donald Trump and Elon Musk by proxy. I know, strange concept, blaming freedom of speech for the people's voices actually being able to heard and actually being fair and actually people being able to decide things. I know, freedom of speech, what an evil thing out there. And he virtue signaled by saying he was going to leave X for Blue Sky, saying, now that I've fled Leon's site for Blue Skies, I'm sure I'll be called an XX, but personally, I always got myself a hashtag Twitter quitter. Oh, aren't you so clever, Mark Hamill? No wonder you have to have other people write your lines for you and stuff it inside of your head. Now the embattled actor is giving a new interview where he shows how... Actually, hold on. Let's pause that for a second. Now the embattled actor has given a new interview where he shows how bad his Trump derangement really is, and it appears to be driven by mental illness. In an interview clip posted by Autism Capital on X, Mark Hamill is shown as bumbling about his extreme leftist activism before he starts saying, and honestly, shout out to anybody out there that is weaponizing their autism to do the Lord's work. Hey, he gave it to you for a reason. This might just end up being a little whimsical, but nonetheless, you guys know who I'm talking about. First of all, I was devastated. Oh, it hurt his voice. It hurt his voice. He was devastated because he found out that the majority of the American population didn't agree with all of him and everybody else in his little Hollywood bubble. I know, strange concept. I want to get rid of the Electoral College because Hillary beat him by 3 million votes, just shy under 3 million, and Gore beat W by 500,000, and it's making me crazy. Hey, by the way, how'd that work out in this election? Who won the popular vote, Mark? Why don't you admit who won the popular vote, Mark? Mark, who won the popular vote in 2024? Mark, huh? And here's the other thing, too. Boys and girls, if you want to understand what would destroying the Electoral College do, I'll give it to you real simple. It would mean that the only 3 states in the entire country that would decide every single facet of the American future going forward would be New York, California, and Texas, baby. Why? Because we're the largest population centers. That means every single presidential candidate going forward would never, ever again visit any other place but those 3 states. So allow me again, all of you little woke psychopaths out there, how good does it sound like having the Electoral College removed after all? I started reading about the Electoral College. Oh, because clearly you didn't know anything about it before, which obviously makes sense. It's a remnant of slave days. Okay, here we go again, rewriting history. Okay. In proportion of the amount of votes, which how many slaves you owned. It was awful. But anyway, that and Cena's not, I'd like to get rid of it. Okay, so I'm just going to stop this right here for a second and tell him about this. Yeah. It was about slavery. You know why you had an electoral college, right? Because you didn't want the southern states with their massive slave populations out there to dominate the entire rest of the country, i.e., without the electoral college, you would have never been able to actually vote slavery out. Why? Because the highest populations would have been in the South, and the slave-controlling South would have controlled the entire government, Mark. So yeah, it did involve slavery. The Electoral College was to prevent slavery from continuing, you fucking moron! But anyway, that and Citizens United, I'd like to get rid of. I actually kind of agree with that one, to the corporations being able to do all the kind of craziness that they do. As you said, you can get the most scorching hate tweets from the MAGA crowd. And then I was still on Twitter. I stopped reading responses to my tweets. I wouldn't block anyone because then they display it as a Mark Hamill blocked you as a badge of honor. Yeah, that would be. Trust me, I'd love to have that one. But I muted like a mofo. I looked up one day and I was like, oh my God, I've been muting people for 4 minutes. Oh, so you're addicted to social media and you couldn't stop yourself. Okay, thank you. There's another admission. Thank you. That's a good start. Let's work on the healing process. So once I realized how it was eating into my time, I said, the only thing I do is don't read the responses. You just can't. And someone said to me, my daughter said, Daddy, You shouldn't tweet politically much because people get so angry. As she's right. You're just a dancing clown. You're an adult pretender. Maybe you should just shut up and dance, clown. And so I wrote a tweet that said, people complaining about my Trump tweets have to understand I love my country and I feel like it's my patriotic duty to oppose this sociopathic, I forget the other word, whatever it was, whichever fiber of my being that way I've been. Oh, so you literally wrote a tweet attacking your daughter for calling you out for tweeting too much and being insane. Makes sense, completely lines up with what we know about you. I do feel like it's an obligation. And who cares about my career? What career? I mean, you haven't done anything significant outside of star in some failed Disney Star Wars movies. So, what career exactly are you talking about? Outside of your voice acting career? People just say it's hurting your career because you have to appeal to the whole country, not just half the country, or 45%, or whatever the MAGA crowd is. Well, according to the last election, over half the country. Yeah, so the majority, Mark, the majority. But in the grander scheme of things, who cares if I lose a part in a movie? Because I hate the orange atrocity. I do, and I want people to know that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad because here's the thing. We have seen in the past few years that guess what? There's a lot of Hollywood out there that aren't true believers. So Mark Hamill, thank you so very much for finally admitting the fact that you are truly possessed by the spirit of the age. You are completely and totally down as a member for the cult. And guess what? It should come as no shock to any one of us. More often than not, what surprises us is how many people out there who espouse all of your same talking points, who espouse all of your same nonsense. Well, it turns out they actually don't worship at your cult. They were just giving you lip service, and they do actually worship the almighty dollar. Don't believe me? Watch what happens with Marvel over the next few years. Watch what happens with all of the characters out there that have been nothing more than identity politics, DEI hires get gone, poof, or maybe snapped out of existence when it comes to Avengers Secret Wars. Because guess what? You all thought male, pale, and straight was so stale. Oh, guess what? It turns out it was a white boy summer because the number one movie outside of animation was, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine. And that movie is nothing more than a couple of quote-unquote toxic males doing toxic male stuff, and it became the number one R-rated movie of all time. The other number one movie of the year, Pixar's Inside Out 2, which, as we saw from the IGN article and a whole bunch of pissed off formerly Disney employees, Disney made us pull all the gay out of it and wouldn't allow it because they knew that was why Lightyear failed. So guess what, Mark? I'm glad to hear that you finally admitted that you're completely and totally insane, that you are truly crazy, and that you did get your brain broke by what happened in the 2016 election. And now you found out once again that the majority of the country, the majority of people in Western civilization do not agree with your woke ideology, Mark. So from the bottom of the Star Wars fan's heart, thank you, Mr. Hamill, for admitting what we've already known for a very long time. You are indeed crazy. You are truly possessed by the spirit of the age. You are an absolute cultist who will sacrifice everything, including your own granddaughter, on the altar to your cult. Fortunately enough, she still lives to this very day, contrary to the fact that you are now made it very sure that you will sacrifice everything on that altar to make sure that your worldview continues to get pushed forward. Well, guess what? We live in a reality where 2 + 2 still equals 4. God is still on his throne in heaven. Right is still right. Good is still good. Evil is still evil. Up is still up. Down is still down. And the majority of the world still actually has common sense. And that election just proved it to you. And guess what? As we've seen so many times before, if you would have gotten rid of the Electoral College when all of you little psychopaths wanted, guess what? Majority still rules because Donald Trump got elected by the majority of the population in the United States, won the popular vote, and Mark Hamill, no matter how hard you simped for Kamala and the spirit of the age, it did you no good. So, Mark, you've made the first step. You've admitted that you're crazy. Now, go get the help that you need. God bless, dear sir, and thank you for being honest.